All right. Presumably everybody can see my screen. And as I said, welcome to everybody. Hard to believe that this is lab number 3. And today we're going to focus specifically on business planning. And as we like to say, it's all about developing a blueprint for earned income success. And we're going to talk more about that as we go through our session. So yes, this is the home stretch. As we were looking back through our previous labs, hard to believe it was March that we started this, and it's already mid-May. So we're glad to have everybody back. This is the first time we've ever written a poem for our MMI labs. So let me please read it. Hope is lovely, dreams inspire, but planning will light your venture's fire. To earn, to grow, to understand, it all begins with a business plan. And yes, this is true. It is the planning that will really create the magic to help propel your success for whatever your earned income venture is, whether you're going to launch a new venture or expand and grow an existing one. We've learned time and time again that a business plan is critically important. Okay, so Josephine, let's launch poll question number 1.
Okay, let's see how good I am at this. There we go. Does everybody see it?
Yep.
Good. Okay. Have you ever written a business plan to launch or grow an enterprise? I love the does it count if it was on a paper napkin? And the answers are flowing in. Give you a couple more seconds. There's a few more people to answer. And there we go.
I'd love to see the paper napkin ones.
Can you see the results now?
Yeah.
Does everybody else see the results?
Well, it looks like we have 34 of 35 people who have voted. Is that right? So the winner here is the sort of, it was brief and to the point. And then it looks like we're kind of tied for both, yes, it was thoughtful and comprehensive, and never. And then we got a few who said doesn't count if it was on a paper napkin. So however you answered this poll question, the good news is that today will be very helpful because it's either going to reinforce things you already know or teach you some new things that you're not aware of. And if you're somewhere in between, we do believe you're going to get value from today's session. So let's keep going. If I can advance the slide here. There we go. All right, so you've all seen this before. Get connected. Please feel free to share anything you hear today on social. And just want to note that after our lab today, you're going to get a few things. You'll get a slide deck, you'll get the worksheet, you'll get the session recording of the session. We're going to have another feedback survey because we love feedback. So please do take that survey. It will not take a long time to do. And then you'll also get an advancement packet for those of you who are interested in moving to the next phase of the initiative. And we're going to talk more about that as we get further into the session. You've all seen this slide before too, our must-dos. So yes, please do each of these things. And of course, we'll have fun as we've done in previous labs. Why are we here? So largely because we want each of you to get some additional insight into developing a business plan for your earned income venture, specifically focusing on your most viable earned income possibility. Because again, remember, we've been focusing with you during our labs on kind of vetting those possibilities to see which one might be most viable for your organization. Also to understand the power of business planning just in terms of getting some knowledge, acquiring some additional tools and resources, and applying it to your organization as we move through to this next phase of the initiative. Our agenda is pretty simple. We're going to start with a quick recap from the previous lab, and then we're going to dive into business planning, the why, the what, and we'll have a number of examples. And then we're going to do a wrap up and next step. We also are going to take a short 5-minute break at 11 o'clock. So again, remember, we're here today until noon. All right, Josephine, poll question number 2.
Okay, coming up, maybe. Oh, please. Oh, somebody, one of you, Mike or Larry, have to get rid of the poll question from before.
Not on my screen.
It's not on my screen either.
Are you sure?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll go to Plan B.
Well, okay.
Question. Thinking about your number one possibility, which one of the following will be most critical to its success? Okay, type in the chat box. Strong mission alignment, having LWRCC, a business plan. There we go. Thank you, Josephine. Startup or growth capital. Oops, that's poll 1. Weird. There we go. Startup or growth capital, and then commitment to an ongoing dedicated effort.
Where's all of the above?
We knew you were going to ask that. You
They
have to
literally said purposely they didn't put it there.
that.
That's great.
We had it in the past, and we decided to take it off just to make you choose one.
Yeah, this is a good one. Few more seconds for everyone to answer. I love this. This tells lots. Okay, here we go.
All right. So looks like we're tied with startup and growth capital, commitment to an ongoing dedicated effort. Those got the number 1 slot. And then let's see, next up is a business plan. And then we've got a few that said strong mission alignment and having LWRCC. Well, let's see. I don't know if that was, can't remember if that was Dan who said, how come we don't have all of the above here? But it actually is all of the above. So a business plan, of course, is pretty darn important. And that's what we're going to be using as a springboard for our discussion. So here we go. Larry, turning over to you.
All right. I'm going to go through this very, very quickly. First of all, it was great to meet all of you at the last lab. You know, over the past few years, we haven't had a lot of face-to-face with folks, so it was awesome to be able to spend some time with you and get to know you. So thank you for that. And we got a lot of really positive feedback from that lab. So awesome. Let's go ahead, Mike. So let's do a very fast recap. Probably see yourself here. It was a great day, great learning lab. Lots of interaction. Thank you for all the social media for those who did it that day. If you want to do some more today, go ahead. The panel, all of you thought the panel was enlightening, was powerful, and you all commented on it. Some of you have actually followed up with some of the panelists, so that's a positive step. Mike did a great job facilitating. Thank you, Mike. We spent some time vet and prioritizing. We used 3 different tools. The first tool we used was a SWOT analysis. You went through that process. Many of you had done that before. The second tool we used was the risk and mitigation. You went through that very, very quickly, and that was an aha moment for some of you, especially during our calls. And then you went through assessing with tool 3, assessing your earned income possibility, at least one of them. And it came out very positive for many of you. And there were some aha moments for some. The fourth tool was the matrix. This was really an eye opener for some of you, especially for some of the programs that you realize are in low mission, low margin, that you probably shouldn't be doing any longer. But almost all of you had high margin, high mission. So it was great. And you're ready for success. Once you've identified that earned income, how do you assess your organization's preparedness? We spent some time with LWRCC. Leadership, willingness, readiness, capacity, and culture. And let's do the next poll question to wrap it up.
All right, let's try this again. Here we go. It's working. How much progress have you made since Lab 2? Significantly advanced our thinking and action. We made progress. There's still more to do. We haven't moved the needle, and we've had competing priorities and no time to think about it. We can't see who answers what, just in case you want to know. It's anonymous. It does feel like it really wasn't that long ago. Few more seconds for anyone else that wants to answer. And we're ending the poll. Here's the results.
That's great.
All right.
So some of you had some competing priorities. Many of you really took a look at it and you made some progress, and that's awesome. I mean, 21 out of 31. So we really appreciate that. And that was obvious to Mike and I when we had our calls with you. Thank you all. I'll turn it back over to Mike.
All right. So, as you're thinking about your earned income possibilities, as you've been vetting them, as you've been thinking about how to prioritize them, presumably you have a potential opportunity now. The question is, what do you do with it? And of course, our recommendation is to develop a business plan. And as we talk about business planning, we'd like to make sure that you think about it in terms of a number of things. One is this quote that we like, which says, planning is bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it now. And again, goes back to that old cliche, but there's no time like the present. And we truly believe that when it comes to business planning. So we've got a little bit of a primer. We want to just sort of ground everybody in basic terminology, definitions, and just kind of understanding some of the basics of business planning. So the way we define business plan is a written document that describes in detail how an organization is going to launch or grow a business, okay? And again, we asked the question earlier, if you've developed a business plan, was it a detailed and thoughtful one? Was it a sort of business plan, brief? Was it on a paper napkin? Well, let's talk a little bit more about that. So typically, when we talk about a business plan, we like to make sure that social return or mission impact is addressed in it, that financial return is addressed in it, certainly marketing, and the last one is sort of the operations and how you're actually going to operationalize this business and bring it to life. Okay, so what are the benefits? And there are several. The first is that a business plan really is a strategic roadmap. It will lay out all the various components of this business that you need to think about, address, and ultimately use to implement. It'll help align your mission and your revenue goals. It is definitely more than just a document. It, if you have developed one before, you would know and understand that it is really a living, sort of breathing tool to guide your decisions. And we always say that a business plan will evolve, it will change as your venture grows, and that's okay. It's not a document that will sit on a shelf and sort of sit there over time. You'll revisit it, things will change, and as they do, you'll want to make adjustments in it. We also have found time and time again that a business plan builds organizational alignment. And we have seen that it will create a shared understanding among your key stakeholders, your board, your staff, your funders, and likely others. And then lastly, a business plan will increase your chances of success. And as you sort of look at and think about getting into business planning, you'll see that it will help you identify opportunities and risks, and it will help you drive results and impact for your venture and even have ripple effects for your organization. Okay, so what are the key components of a business plan? There's a number of them. We will share the ones that we like to include in a plan. You will see that if you look at a number of different templates, some of them have different sections in them, but these are typically the ones that we like to suggest that you use. So any business plan will start with an executive summary, simply a concise business plan overview, and it should make various stakeholders want to keep reading. It's the last thing you're going to write after the plan is done. About the organization and mission, you'll want to make sure it has a snapshot of your history, your mission, your track record, because that ultimately can help build your stakeholder confidence. Absolutely critical is to make sure your plan is rooted in a problem worth solving or a need, because without a meaningful need, you don't really have a viable business case. So something to be thinking about. I think for most of your earned income possibilities, they were rooted in a need, but if they weren't, it's something worth thinking about. Which then leads to the solution, or what is your product or service that you're selling that helps address that problem worth solving or that need? Who's the target market? A profile of your paying customer prospects. It's a competition. And that's really where you're going to want to analyze who are the others out there that are offering similar products or services. The marketing plan. So the marketing plan is your strategy to build awareness and visibility specifically for your earned income venture. The sales plan. How are you going to turn your plan from interest into actual revenue? How are you going to get the cash register to ring, as we would typically talk about? Metrics. Metrics, goals, and benchmarks to ensure that you can measure progress and success. Without them in a business plan, you will not know if you are succeeding. And I'm going to move the last one is financials. Very, very, very important. And financials are ultimately, for purposes of our type of business plan that we work on, 3 years of forecasting revenue, expenses, and profitability, plus whatever your startup or growth capital needs might be. Those will come out of your financials. We're going to dive into each of these and talk more about them, but just wanted to give everybody a sense for what are the components of the business plan that are typically most important. We use a template called Live Plan. There's a lot of templates out there. This one happens to be a cloud-based business planning template. You purchase it on either a monthly or an annual subscription. It's quite reasonable. It is very user-friendly. In fact, I mean, we've looked at a number of different templates over many years, and by far this one we find is just intuitive. It's step by step, and it is quite robust in terms of the resources that it has on it. Lots of examples are included within it, so you can look at other business plans for a number of different types of businesses and categories. You can go to liveplan.com to check it out, learn more. And again, this is the template we use. So for any organization that works with us, LivePlan is the one. All right. The other thing we like to share when we talk about business planning is what it is. So it's externally focused. It is specifically geared to a product or a service. You are likely going to share it with potential donors, investors, and funders at the appropriate time. And it has a more formal and detailed structure and contents. We don't believe that the paper napkin is the way to go with the business plan for a number of reasons. And a good business plan will be well thought out. It will be comprehensive, and oftentimes it'll be, anywhere from 50 to 100 pages. You want it to be the story of your earned income venture. You want it to be something that you can use internally to guide your implementation, but also to get others on board who may be interested in investing in your business. What it is not. So please do not confuse a business plan with a strategic plan. Oftentimes we will hear folks talking within their organizations, sometimes even after our meetings in our labs, saying that they're working on an initiative for a strategic plan. It's not this. Remember, a strategic plan is really an overarching plan that sets the strategic direction for the organization. It is primarily used as an internal planning tool, but it can provide the basis for more detailed, which could include business planning, marketing strategies, funding strategies, and more. So again, business plan, strategic plan, this is all specifically focused on planning. All right, Larry, over to you.
Yeah. So Mike provided an overview of the different sections of a business plan. Let's spend a little bit of time and drill down into most of those. And the first one is really about the organization, and part of about the organization is your mission statement. And earned income business plan should start with your organization's mission statement. And we love it to be aligned with your mission. You could have it not aligned with your mission, but 100% of the organizations we work with have it aligned with their mission. It really grounds the venture in the values and the goals that you believe in as an organization. It also ensures your venture is mission aligned. So when you bring the two together and focus that way, it's a win-win for you. The third is it reinforces the connection between financial viability and your social impact. So you can do better, do more out there and make that social impact and create additional dollars for your organization at the same time. So let's give you an example. We've worked with the YWCA in Hartford, Connecticut. They're about eliminating racism and empowering women. They created a earned income business, a flower business called Persimmons Petals. And they aligned that business because it sounds very not aligned, right? They aligned it with workforce training and employment. That's the alignment for them. So it's all about getting women up and out of, in some cases, poverty or incarceration, and getting them back employed and then out into the workforce. So that's a good example of how mission kind of connected with that business. So take just a second and type in the chat box. I'm going to open up the chat on my screen. Type in the chat box how your number one earned income possibility is aligned with your mission of your organization. Just take a minute or two and think about, how is that alignment made? Is it workforce? Is it something you're already doing that is expanding? Think about it. So you see workforce training, workforce, provide similar services to the community that we already provide to veterans. Literacy and family engagement. Expanding current services, alignment with our mission and services. Rentals of our facility to organizations or individuals to create expression of our community engagement. Good. Advancing arts and culture. Great. So you've thought about this. We've talked about this during all three of our labs so far. How do you make that alignment? And I know Mike and I have had those individual conversations with you too, really trying to create that alignment and choosing that right product or service that has that mission alignment. So thank you for that. Good. So next is the problem. What's the problem out there that you're trying to solve, that's worth solving even? A clear explanation of the need your product or service addresses. This isn't talking about your product or service yet. This is talking only about the need out there in the community that you're trying to address. Without a meaningful problem, you don't have a viable business case. So what's the problem? And our product is going to match up against it. Who's experiencing the problem? Why hasn't it been adequately solved? So these are questions that you'll have to ask yourself as you're building this case in the problem we're solving section. So we love to include some data, some quotes, some stories, some illustrated need. You already have a lot of this information because you're getting phone calls. You already have some data sets probably on why it's a big problem out there and why you're thinking about creating this product or this service in the first place. So let me give you an example using the Literacy Council. And you met Tom at the lab, who's executive director. So their problem was there's low literacy in the local workforce. And they were getting calls from businesses saying, we have a problem. Do you have a product or a service where you could come in and do some training for us? They didn't at the time have that. So they were saying no to these organizations, these businesses. So they created ESL trainings for employees of local businesses. That was one of the trainings that they rolled out. And they're still doing that. So there was definitely a problem in the community, and they matched their product and their training services up against that. That's a good example. Problem we're solving. Right.
Okay, so that takes us to the third section in the business plan, probably one of the most important ones, because this is where you're going to address the solution. So the solution to the problem or the need that you've addressed in the prior section is whatever your product or service is. And again, it might be something brand new, or it might be something that you already have and that you intend to expand and grow. But ultimately, this is your core offering, and you want to make sure that you articulate it in such a way that it can be easily understood, whether it's funders, whether it's by customers, or any other stakeholder for that matter. So this section starts with a description of your offering, a description of your product or service. You've heard Larry and I talk with a number of you during our Zoom sessions saying, how are you going to describe this? You know, does it roll off your tongue? Is it difficult to articulate? And have you really thought through the various components of it? Ask yourselves what makes it useful or appealing or unique. That should all be part of how you describe whatever it is you're going to sell. And also think about, as part of your description for the offering, how does it get delivered? Is it virtual? Is it in person? Is it via subscription? Maybe it's a combination. As Larry was just talking about Literacy Council and their training, their ESL trainings for businesses, they initially started it as in-person trainings. Then the pandemic hit. They decided to go virtual, and now they offer a hybrid so that the businesses can train their employees either in person or virtually. And also really understanding what are the key features that your product or service has to offer. And we have a worksheet that you're going to all receive tomorrow. And as part of that worksheet, you're going to be able to address your own product or service and be able to articulate it. There's that worksheet. So, example. Again, in Lab 2, Lisa Intagliata from Resilient Retreat was part of that panel. Their earned income venture is the Retreat Sarasota. So here's how they very briefly articulate the Retreat Sarasota. It's an event venue on 84 acres of conservation land in Sarasota. It offers a variety of indoor and outdoor spaces for meetings, retreats, weddings, and events. And importantly, proceeds support Resilient Retreat, a nonprofit dedicated to helping survivors of abuse and first responders. So very simple, very clear. And of course, in the actual business plan itself, they went into more detail to describe this sort of, venue rental business. But this is a pretty simple elevator speech, if you will, to quickly explain to people what this venture is. Okay.
Mike, can I add one thing to
Sure.
this? One thing to keep in mind is as a donor or somebody on the outside is reading this, they have to clearly understand it. Even if they don't know who you are or what you do, if they read this, they will understand what this business or this opportunity is that you're asking them for money to help get off the ground or to grow. So don't have jargon in it, don't have acronyms in it. Kind of keep all of that out. There's actually first drafts that Mike and I have read that we don't have a clue what it even means because so much jargon has been used in it. So I just share that with you because really screen it and pull all that language out and make it truly understandable for kind of the layperson outside of your organization.
Yeah, it's a good point. We all have our own, sort of nonprofit speak that we use within our organizations. And I know even with this description you're seeing for the Retreat Sarasota, this actually went through a number of iterations early on in the process and has evolved over time. But I think the good news is that, like anything else, you can refine it, you can improve it, you can tweak it as you go, and it'll only get stronger and better. All right, so that was what we call the solution, or sharing what your product or service is. All right, let's go to poll question 4, Josephine.
Got it.
So the question is, if you were to describe your venture to a funder, how understandable would it be? Quick and easy to articulate. It takes time to explain. A bit confusing. We're working on it. And we plead the fifth, not ready to share.
And remember, we can't see what you're choosing.
All right, very happy to see that the obvious majority here have gone with quick and easy to articulate.
So the surveys are anonymous?
Yes, I
Good to
promise.
know.
We've got
Absolutely.
we've got a couple who said it takes time to explain, one that says a bit confusing, we're working on it, and nobody who pleads the fifth. So again, it'll evolve over time. If it's something that you feel like you need to work on, you can, and I think you'll have the opportunity to do that. Okay,
And I
so
think I'm going to jump in. I think, like you guys have said, Mike and Larry, that share it with people that aren't familiar with your organization, or just share the project with the venture with your friends, and they'll tell you if it's quick and easy to understand for sure.
yeah,
Right.
great. Yeah, I mean, you can do some informal research. You can write out the statement of your earned income venture. You can put it in a survey and share it with others. You can do one-on-ones. You can do a focus group. There's lots of different ways to share it with others and get their feedback. All right, so who will buy it? Without customers, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. You've heard us say this time and time again. Ultimately, the distinction between doing an earned income venture that might be in business today, but maybe not next week, but then again the following week, and then off the week after that, that's a hobby. Uh, if you're dedicated to doing it and targeting it to the folks who are ultimately going to be your purchasers, you will have a business. So let's talk a little bit about target market. The definition simply is it's a profile of your paying customers. They might be current existing paying customers, or they might be prospective customers. Not just who they are, but what motivates them to buy. So really trying to understand and get into a little bit of their head, if you will, to find out why would they buy your product or service and what would motivate them. So you want to think about demographics like age, perhaps gender, could be income, location, type of organization. Uh, are you going to sell your offering to nonprofit organizations? Are you going to sell it to businesses? Are you going to sell it to corporations? If it's individuals, are they older individuals, younger, and so forth? But again, really understanding the demographics. We also like you to think about the psychographics. So values, buying behavior, lifestyle, those things that perhaps are going to influence a decision by somebody to make a purchase. You might also want to key in on any pain points or needs in terms of how you're defining your market. Again, as you went through and kind of identified the problem or the need, for what types of customers might that exist, and using that to really help you crystallize your target audience definition. And then also, we like buyer personas or looking at specific customer segments, because if you can sort of put a personality or define an individual for who your clients or customers might be, you can find it to be very, very helpful. So you're going to have an opportunity to do that on your worksheet, but let us give you an example. So we worked with Dress for Success in the Palm Beaches, and they went through a pretty interesting exercise as part of identifying their target audience for their retail store. Now, if you've ever worked or been a part of any of the Dress for Success affiliates, you know that what they typically would do is help individuals who are entering the job or employment market to be dressed professionally. But in this particular case, this Dress for Success was going to open a store to sell a number of the articles of clothing that they received that fell outside of the professional dress category. So they wanted to sell clothing to 3 different types of individuals. So they defined the first individual, they actually named her Joy Smith, and she is a fashion conscious, stay-at-home mom with 2 kids, but she's on a clothing budget. So she wants to dress well, but on a budget. Okay, the second target market segment was represented by a woman named Britt Thomas. Britt Thomas is a student, happens to be at Kaiser University, locally in the Palm Beach area. She dresses in professional attire, but on a student budget. So a good kind of insight and understanding to have for that category of customer. And then the last one is a woman who they called Sylvia Young, and ironically, she's older, even though her name is Young. So they said that she's a widow living on a fixed income who enjoys dressing up. So these are 3 viable target audiences or target markets for their apparel store, but different in terms of their demographic makeup, their psychographic, and also kind of their motivations for buying or ultimately buying clothing at their store. So of course, this has implications for a number of things, both in terms of marketing, sales, and how they are actually going to reach out to and address these various customers. Okay. So,
Mike,
yeah,
I'm just wondering if you want to open it up and maybe have somebody share who their target market is. We have a
sure.
little bit of time.
So, yeah, thinking about, some of you have thought about this more than others. And again, if you already have an existing business venture that's up and running, of course, you know who your target market or target markets are. So just to open it up for anybody who'd like to share, whether it's an existing business you have up and running that you want to expand and grow or something new, who would like to share kind of how you're thinking about your target market or your target market segments? And I guess, has anybody ever thought about them in terms of kind of these personas and giving definition to, kind of the real people, if you will, that might represent these various targets? All right, so
Or we'll just call on
I
somebody.
think I saw Jennifer Bowser's hand up. Jennifer from Arcadia DeSoto Habitat.
Hey.
Hi. Yeah, so our idea is a school store basically within our restore. And our target markets, I guess there's several of them because, grandparents like to support their grandchildren at school events. So they would like to have, some kind of school spirit merchandise to wear or carry with them. The parents also like to, support the kids, and the kids themselves like to have things that have, some school spirit to them. So I would say those are our main 3 target markets. But really, it's our target market is the entire community because our community is uh, very much behind our school and their children. So, there's a lot of people who don't have children who still attend these events and um, like to show, their support. So that's our target audience, I guess. Everybody.
That's great. Yeah, and again, like once you've defined those target market segments, it's easier for you to quantify like how many of them are there in sort of in that universe, like for example, you know how many students are in the district, or you can find that information out. You certainly then can find out, how many parents or family members there are, because that's, I guess, tracked in the community as well. Alumni, I'm guessing, the school district probably keeps track of that through their own database, and then just the general community at large. So you can quantify each of those. Thanks for sharing, Jennifer. Okay, Dan Miner, jump in.
Yeah. So for us, our target market, we're separating it into the two different. Well, let me tell you what we're doing first. Remind you, I'm not going to expect everyone to remember this, but we have a venue rental, and we're going to be expanding that with other things that people are already renting from other vendors, and then a beer and wine license for the events that have beer and wine, and then eventually into a floral part of it, offering the opportunity to provide the flowers for events. So the two specific markets that we would be marketing to is nonprofit events and private events. So in the private events, our target market would be somebody who probably is busy, successful, has an event, but doesn't want to have, I think the average number of vendors or contracts signed, for instance, for a wedding is 14. So that's 14 contracts, 14 people. So if we can get that down to 6 or 7, that's going to attract somebody who has less time, usually someone who's probably, has a lot going on in their life and sees the value of being able to get more things in one place. And then someone who also likes the idea of the money that they're going to spend anyways going into something that is being used for social services or housing for unhoused families, or all the things that are within our mission. As far as her name or his name, I don't have that for you, Michael. I'll work on that. Okay. And then on the other side for us, it's going to look like, nonprofits, a lot of which we are either already aligned with or have done work with, who are interested in supporting another nonprofit and like the idea of, a lot of times in nonprofits, you have one person doing 3 people's jobs. So that's going to be somebody who might be in charge of events, but they're also in charge of marketing, and they're also in charge of PR. And they want to be able to do an event without having to track down so many vendors and figure out how they're going to pull it all together. And they may not have a budget for hiring an event management or event planner. So yeah, that's kind of who we'd be going after.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Dan. Yeah, there's, certainly good, viable target market segments to go after when you have a venue rental business. But, I think to your point, you're not going to try to be all things to all people. So you're trying to carve out a bit of a niche, and then define your target markets based on that. And that's great. And you can always evolve it over time too, depending on, what you learn, what you see, and how your business develops over time. Okay. We've got time for one more. If anybody wants to share, how are you thinking about your own target audiences or target markets? Anybody?
I think you should call on somebody.
All right. So let's see. I'm going to count to 3, and if nobody raises their hand to share, I will call on somebody. 1,
It's your warning.
2.5, 3. All right, so let's go over to Key Corral. I'm going to go to Joseph Calkins and his team members. If you want to share kind of what's your venture and how are you thinking about the target market segments?
Sorry, I have a
Can you hear us?
long way from the mute button.
Ah,
Can you hear me?
yep.
Okay. So our what's that?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now? As they say.
Yes.
All right. So what we're looking at doing is creating what we're calling interactive music toolkits. These are themed curriculums that we would sell to different senior populations, and it was kind of the everything you need to know, one-stop shopping to give them all the tools to start an outreach choir, either for general senior enrichment or for specific health challenges like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, dementia. And we have quite a few different target audiences. The first is choirs like Key Corral that are interested in doing more meaningful community outreach, and we can kind of help them do that and give them the tools to do it. There are a number of senior choirs that exist all over the country that do not have really specific performing materials that we're designing that would be really helpful for those choirs, because there's not enough in the marketplace that really can do that. Another target audience, there's a group called Giving Voice Network, which has a network of about 50 choirs all over the country that are Alzheimer's dementia choirs, and all of those need more resources. And so we would be able to provide those resources for them. There are also organizations that are wanting to create more social connection, more opportunities, groups like Alzheimer's dementia groups, Parkinson's network. So that would be another one, is partnering with other organizations that want to create more choirs like this. And then larger assisted living facility communities and adult daycare facilities. So we have a lot of different directions we can go. And I think the challenge is picking, one or two that make the most sense to start, so that we're not trying to do 10 things poorly, but one or two things well.
Yes, excellent point. And again, the business plan will give you the opportunity to both define who are those market segments, what's the size of each one, and then how might you prioritize them? Because again, as you said, Joe, it really is going to be a matter of how do you focus on the ones that ultimately are going to be most viable, to build your business and to drive revenue and mission impact. So thanks everybody for sharing. We're going to take a 5-minute break. So feel free to put yourselves on mute, turn off your videos, and then let's be back at 5 after 11.
The next section that we want to focus on is competition. And we all have competition. And our definition of competition is an analysis of other organizations or maybe businesses that offer similar solutions, and how you compare against them. So, and the reason we need to do that, we need to show funders and partners that we understand that landscape of our competitors and how we might have a competitive edge, how we're better than they are, especially as we're sharing our business plan with them. So there's direct competitors. So they offer a very similar solution to ours, could be a very similar solution, or it could be a indirect competitor, could be an alternate solution, maybe a different solution. But there's a third way to think about it, or your unique differentiators. So you might have a price difference or a mission difference or mission tie-in, or you might have niche expertise in a certain area. So you might differentiate yourself in one of those three areas or in other ways. Maybe there's a geographic differentiator. So we have a worksheet that we'd like you to think about competitors as you're moving forward. And competitors could be kind of in a number of different ways, for-profit or nonprofit. They could come from a number of different directions. So Mike, I'd like to open it up for just a second, if we can. And who are key competitors, whether they're direct or indirect? Maybe if somebody could share, and many of you are thinking about doing venue rentals, so they might have competitors maybe even on this Zoom call. Maybe. Hopefully not. Hopefully you're partners as you move forward, right?
So
Somebody
Larry, say the question again.
Sure. Maybe quickly, what's your business opportunity that you're thinking about, and maybe one or two competitors that maybe are out there in the world that you have to be thinking about as you're putting your business together. And maybe I'll just call on Jesse.
Sure. I mean, we're going for a facility rental plan as well. So I think, Dan, we're coming at you real hard. No, just kidding.
Hey, bring
I would
it,
say
bring it,
there's
Jesse.
lots-
You bring it, okay? Because I have Mike Oxman as my coach, and we're gonna kick Larry's people's rear ends. Is that all right?
It's like The Voice, right?
I love it.
Wow. Wow.
Sorry,
Love
we're
it.
stereotyping ourselves right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Josephine and
I
I
don't
will
know.
back off and become more sensitive and loving.
And this is
Je-
being
Je-
recorded. I just wanted you to know.
Oh boy.
Je-
Okay.
but
Another one.
Jesse's
Another one
got
out there.
Jesse's got the voice, though. I have to tell you, right?
But I mean, I think there's a good amount of competition, but I think you're right. Where we come in is where we differentiate our options and our potential offerings, right?
Okay, good. Somebody else want to share? Brian, I'm just going to call on you.
Thanks. As we work with our artists in our community, there are a lot of arts organizations. There's a lot of different galleries. So there are plenty of different happenings and organizations and businesses out there. So that's part of our competition. But I think that there are really some significant ways we can differentiate by really highlighting local and specifically of excellence.
Good, good. How about one more?
Maybe it's a good time to acknowledge here, Larry, too, that we often say that if somebody in an organization says to us, well, we don't have any competition, that can be a bit of a red flag that you haven't done your homework. So
Probably.
I will just say it's rare that there is no competition out there, whether it's the direct competitor or an indirect competitor that might be in this,
Right.
perhaps doing it a little bit differently.
And a lot of times you can think about competitors as could be key partners. So think about it that way. Many of the organizations that we have helped in the community that have developed venue rentals are now coalescing once a quarter, and they're starting and talking about how do we share. If I'm busy and somebody calls us, I'll send them to you. So they could become partners at the same time, even though they might be considered competitors. All right. Thank you, both of you, for sharing, even though I called on you. And I like the little competition back and forth.
All right, so just continuing with this theme, and Brian, you mentioned that as you're looking at kind of your number one earned income opportunity, that you have something of sort of unique value that you're starting to focus in on, think about as you're positioning potentially yourselves with the competitors out there. So that ties directly to this quote from Steve Martin: be so good they can't ignore you. And you may be familiar with this, or you might not be, but a value proposition is a great way for you to really define what unique benefit that you will offer to your customers for your product or service relative to the competition. So that visual is, it's a nice way to just visualize the red apple that's amongst the sea of green ones. So when we talk about a value proposition, we actually have this thing called a value proposition generator. And if you remember Mad Libs from back in the day, or if you have kids who might do Mad Libs, that's kind of what this is. You're going to build your value proposition through this pretty simple statement that says plug in, the various words to this paragraph. And by doing so, you will have at least the start of a value proposition. So the name of your organization provides whatever your product or service is, which then you're going to say what the statement of unique offering is for those who are in your target audience, and thereby creates you'll drop in the statement of social value, and somehow you're going to refer back to unlike the competition or others out there. So let me, you'll have an opportunity to do that on the worksheet, but let me give you an example. So there's an organization that we work with in California. It's called it's called Coalition for Compassionate Care of California, CCCC. They are an organization that basically helps families, individuals, and others surrounding those who are confronting end-of-life issues. And they worked with us to create an online store where they sold a number of tools. They call them decision aids, consumer brochures, and they have a number of sort of components that go along with those. So as they were looking to define their value proposition, this is what they said. CCCC creates easy to understand multilingual tools that help healthcare providers talk with patients about serious illness. These affordable resources support better, more personalized care than anything else that's currently on the market. So pretty simple, but keys in on their understanding what they have that is unique relative to their competitors, and how they can support that by talking about it in this value proposition. So again, if you've never written a value proposition, use that value proposition generator specifically for whatever your number one earned income venture idea is. And it may start out being very clunky, but you can refine it, you can evolve it, and you can turn it into a statement that will actually be quite useful. Now, the value proposition itself is really more of a strategic statement. It'll help you to define and understand what your product or service offers of unique value. It's probably not something that you're going to use in marketing or post on your social media, but you could use that as a springboard for communications, messaging, and marketing. Okay, so that's the value proposition, and you'll have an opportunity to work on that.
So let's talk about metrics. So every business plan has goals, and they're called metrics. So the definition is key goals or benchmarks, and they include timelines to measure progress and success. So it demonstrates your accountability and helps keep your team aligned. So team could be your board, team could be those that are working in the business, and those donors that are out there, they want to make sure that you do have some goals in this business plan. They'll be looking for those. So those goals could include pre-launch and launch milestones, things happening before and after, short and long-term customers or revenue targets. So dollars. Oh, I think you skipped one, Mike. Impact metrics, so mission-related outcomes. So how many people will we impact along the way, or whatever that mission-related goal might be. And then the last is some kind of a timeline. Every single one of these goals will have some timeline attached to it, whether it's within the first 12 months or out all 36 months of the business plan. So let me give you, you'll get an opportunity to write some goals for your initial idea in the worksheet. And let me give you an organization that we worked with in Florida, a low vision organization. So their mission goal was to contribute to the health needs of 5,000 people by 2025 through the sale of useful vision products. So very clear, 5,000 by 2025. Very clear, very measurable. Their margin goal was to generate 30,000 in net revenue from the sale of their health products by the end of 2025. Their operations to design the infrastructure needed to support operations of the online and pop-up store by 2025. They were creating pop-up stores in actually AAA offices. So they partnered with AAA on this. And the marketing and sales to add marketing and sales resources needed to launch the retail venture by November of 2025. So there's margin, mission, operations, and marketing. Sometimes there's a fifth metric. It might be very specific to your organization. And we see that it could be an environmental metric if you're that kind of a nonprofit. So be thinking about if there's a specific metric that might fit you better beyond these. Let's do a poll question. Josephine.
Okay, let's try it. Here we go. To what degree do you set objectives to achieve measurable goals? For all programs, and we hold ourselves accountable. For some programs, we hold ourselves accountable. We develop objectives, but rarely hold ourselves accountable. And what's an objective again? I love these answers. So on this one, we can see what you're saying. No, I'm teasing.
We can't.
It's still anonymous. Thank you guys for participating. A couple more seconds.
They're good.
There you go.
Heavily weighted towards the top, which is good. All programs, and you hold yourself accountable in some programs, and you hold yourself accountable. So in a business plan, it will be we will be holding you accountable, and you will be holding yourself accountable as you move forward. So, and you need to do that to make sure that you're meeting your revenue and your mission targets. Thank you for doing that. Mike.
Right. So we're going to move in to talk about marketing. And again, remember, we're moving through each of these quickly for purposes of sharing and discussion today. But obviously, once you dive into business planning, you'll have the opportunity to really get far more into the details. So let's talk about how to market. Good quote, marketing is a contest for people's attention. And this visual, can I have your attention, please, is certainly a way to illustrate kind of the notion that there's a lot of marketing messaging out there, that there's a lot of clutter out there for people's attention. So, what can you say? What can you do? What can you share that ultimately is going to build visibility and awareness, but specifically for your earned income venture? So we talk about, in terms of a marketing definition, it's your strategy for raising awareness, attracting customers, and building loyalty, but again, specifically for your earned income venture. And fortunately, there's a number of ways that you can do that. Keep in mind that, and again, I mean, this is something that we've learned over time, but even the best products and services won't succeed without some kind of marketing plan that ultimately is going to reach and persuade your prospective customers. We oftentimes will say, as we're working with each team, don't assume that if you build it, they will come. Sometimes they will, sometimes they might. But if you want to have an ongoing, thriving business that is one that is really generating revenue and mission impact ongoing, having a good marketing plan in place will be important. So when we talk about marketing, we talk about a few different components. One is just branding, brand identity, and messaging strategy. So typically, and your organizations are all good at this. You've created your own organizational brands, perhaps logos, taglines that go along with them, color, look and feel. Those are all part of the brand, who you are, what you stand for as an organization. Your messaging strategy, how do you talk about yourselves? What do you share? What are those most salient and important points that are most relevant to your potential clients and customers? The second one is, what are your marketing channels that you are choosing to reach your prospective clients and customers? So email is an obvious one. We love email because it's free. Again, let me say it's free. Whether it's an email blast, whether it's a personal email, or a combination of the two. Social media, you're all using it. You're using it in varying degrees, maybe some perhaps better than others. But again, social media, various platforms are free. That's a good thing. Of course, there are components that you can pay for to boost and to use social in a variety of different ways. Referrals, another great marketing channel. Oftentimes organizations with an earned income venture, a product or a service, will seek referrals either from current clients or customers or prospects, colleagues, peers. How might you use your network for referrals? Advertising typically is paid. It can be a great way to generate visibility and awareness for your earned income venture. But you may want to think about how to be targeted in your advertising. Typically, if you're advertising in the newspaper, on television, in radio, in mass media, you're paying a lot of money, probably too much, to reach whoever your target clients or customers are. So how do you look at and understand what the targeted advertising opportunities are? And then events, which again, can be a great way to build visibility and awareness. Lots of different types of events. Again, many of your organizations use them for different things, but have you done events for your earned income venture or thought about that? The third area that we like you to think about is kind of the customer journey. So thinking about it through the lens of your potential clients and customers. How do people potentially find and choose you? How are they, sort of using the various marketing vehicles out there, and how can you tailor your plan to them? So if you're going to launch a venue rental business, really understanding who those customers are and how you can ultimately reach them. And then the fourth one is partnerships or influencers. And, we do say time and time again that you may already have partners existing, or perhaps, you've identified ones who could really help you to propel your visibility and awareness. And the same thing with social media influencers. Who do you know out there that has quite a big following who might be able to help you get your message out there? Partnerships, oftentimes we'll talk about, is there a local Rotary Club that can help you to get your messaging out, or that you can get in front of an audience? Chambers of commerce, every community has them. They tend to be a great place to get in front of business people and others who might be potentially clients or customers for your venture. Okay. Again, you'll have an opportunity to think about these things and at least start to jumpstart them on your worksheet. But what we'd like to do is just share some quick examples. So brand identity is one of those areas that you likely will focus on as part of your business plan. Again, especially if you're creating something new. So what is the brand name? What is the logo? And what is the tagline or the theme line for it going to be? I'm just going to show you a few for organizations that we've worked with. Prospect Riding Center offered therapeutic and recreational horseback riding. They worked with Michelle Green at Rough and Ready to develop this very nice brand identity that really says a lot about kind of who they are as an organization and what their earned income venture was. Peepers at the Lighthouse Vision Loss Center came up with this very nice logo for their low vision store, again, working with Michelle Green at Rough and Ready. You heard Mike Mansfield from Charlotte County Habitat talk about their clean out and removal business. So they came up with a graphic for their brand that was really intended to show kind of the process. It's a diagram incorporated into their logo. And then the last one to share is the Folk School at Florida Maritime Museum. They worked with a graphic designer to try to capture that feeling, sort of that rustic, nostalgic feeling for their earned income venture. Another example, your website is really a very important and critical way to build visibility and awareness for your earned income venture. You obviously all have websites for your organization. So be thinking about either how do you, as you're going to launch a new venture, what are you going to say? How are you going to capture it? And where is it going to actually be on your organization's website? Or is it going to be a dedicated website specifically for that earned income venture? So you heard us talk about Literacy Council, and on their website, they actually created a number of dedicated landing pages that were targeted to businesses for their ESL trainings that businesses and corporations would actually come to them and engage with them for working with their employees. So just again, an example. But you can even see like the way that they designed this is they used the icons to allow their various target market segments to be able to click right into the site. So if you're a business school, a nonprofit, an individual, or a tutor instructor, you can click on that to go right in. So sometimes that's a very helpful thing to do depending on who your target audiences are. Another great thing that we love to share, and again, many of you are probably doing this already for your organization, but are you doing them or have you thought about doing them for your earned income venture? So email signature ads, and actually embedding an ad into your email signature and rotating them out over time to specifically focus on whatever it is. So Unidos Now is quite good at their email signature ads. So they have, you can see this one for decision day. Again, they included a graphic, a nice photo, date, and then they have a QR code in here that allowed for specifically engaging with them to RSVP. Another one for an event that they hosted. Again, a great visual along with the QR code to purchase tickets. And then the third one was specifically for the Giving Challenge, but they found a really nice look and feel and almost a campaign type approach that they use for their email signature ads. So again, it's free. And if you think about how many emails that go out from your team, from your organization each day, having that ad is a very good thing. Examples of social media posts, again, the goal here is to think about a variety of different ways that you could promote your earned income venture via social. So for the Retreat Sarasota, they do it a number of different ways. Again, remember, it's venue rentals. So this one happens to be focused on hosting your next event with us and showing a space, one of their rentable spaces in their facilities. Another one shows another one of their spaces that was actually staged for a party, an event. So this one's all about if you're ready to celebrate, so are we. Plan your next birthday, graduation, or celebration with us. Okay, yet another idea for their social was to show that they have a private chef that you can actually hire who will, cater your event. So, kind of showing that very appetite appealing food imagery. And then the fourth one we wanted to share with you was just this, again, another way that they've shared on social is you can book your wedding at the Retreat Sarasota. So this idea of what are you going to share on social and how can it help you build the visibility and awareness? Another thing we just wanted to share briefly is press release, but this is a little bit different. So we worked with 211 on the Palm Beach Treasure Coast, and as they were launching their venture, which was a nonprofit helpline, they used what's called PR Web. And PR Web, if you haven't used it in the past, is a nice way to distribute your media, your news to the media. So reporters, editors, and others who consume the media and can help you spread the word. And so typically PR Web, you would just pay a fee, you would upload a press release, you'd hit a button, and then it would go out in a targeted way to various news writers, reporters, editors, and so forth. What we really like about PR Web, though, is that it also allows you to put in clickable links. So it would actually take whoever is viewing this to your website, to specific landing pages on your website, and so forth. And we also like this because it propels your earned income venture on SEO, so search engine optimization, getting onto Google page 1 for your earned income venture. That is a very good thing, and it oftentimes happens at very, very low cost through PR Web. So a good tool, if you've never used it or aren't familiar with it.
Mike, can I give a little example?
Sure.
Mike and I worked with an organization in rural Alabama years ago, and they did a press release, and they only had 2 FTEs working for their organization. And they used PR Web. Mike helped them put a press release together. The Los Angeles Times picked it up, sent a reporter there. They got a half-a-page article in the LA Times, and huge PR out of it, as you can imagine, and lots of additional donations came into them. So just using PR Web, they never would have got that kind of PR. So small example.
Yeah, good example. Thank you, Larry. All right, so a communications poll question. Josephine.
Here we go.
Okay.
Maybe. This is the last one, right?
Yes.
Okay, checking. All right, here we go. If your marketing was an animal, which would it be? A cheetah, we're fast and responsive to reach our clients and customers. Camel, we get the job done, we're slow and steady. Kangaroo, our marketing hops around and sometimes shows a return. Or a monkey, we're easily distracted, so don't get much done. This is a good one. Few more seconds. I know you guys are wishing it had a middle of the road one. We have a comment that one of Early Learning Coalition would choose octopus. Can't remember.
Mm, mm.
Well,
Don't
add
be
it to the
armed.
next one. All right, so we've got quite the menagerie here. We've got the cheetah, the camel, the kangaroo, and the monkey. Uh,
Perfect.
yeah, I mean, the good news here is that whichever you fit into as part of this menagerie, marketing is one of those things that you can continue to dial up, evolve, get better at, and look for new opportunities to build that visibility and awareness. So thank you, everybody, for sharing. Number 8, we want to just talk briefly about a sales plan because it's different from marketing, even though oftentimes in our heads we sort of think about marketing and sales in the same breath. So when you think about a sales plan, it's really kind of your game plan for turning interest into actual revenue. Or, as we said earlier, it's like, how do you get the cash register to ring without keeping your fingers crossed and hoping that you're going to drive sales? So, earned income isn't just about awareness, that marketing that we just talked about. It's about how do you convert the awareness into actual sales and building of relationships with your potential clients and customers. And we just want to acknowledge that, in nonprofits, it's not something typically that we do, sales and business development. So, while some of you might be already doing that, it's more likely that you're not. And that little photo or picture that we show with the funnel just gives you kind of a sense for how do you move prospects through that funnel, starting with generating a lead, to qualifying a lead, to then kind of assessing the need, to giving them a proposal, and then ultimately getting them to sign on the dotted line. So sales, when you think about sales, it's kind of like within your organization, if you don't currently have somebody who does sales or business development, specifically for whatever this earned income venture is, you're going to have to start thinking about, well, who's going to do that? And a business plan gives you an opportunity to think about that. Not just think about it, but plan for it and build it into your financials. So who is or will be responsible for sales and business development? Okay. The second one, as I said, is the sales funnel or the process. And it's typically a process where you start, with kind of an inquiry, and then you turn that into some kind of quote or bid or proposal. And then you want to move to close it, get folks to sign on the dotted line, and then have sort of a continuous loop where you're following up. And then you might be going back to those same folks to, sell to them again the second time around. And that would be a good thing. There are tools for sales and business development. So CRM, you might be familiar with, customer relationship management, oftentimes just a platform that you would purchase a subscription to, but it allows you to capture the names, get them into a database for any of your prospects, and then move them through that kind of sales funnel we just talked about. Do you have a template for contracts, or or can you access one that you might want to use if you're doing a venue rental business? And then is there any automated tools that you can use? Maybe there's ChatGPT or some other AI tools that might help you create business development letters, that you can use for outreach and so forth. And what's your pricing model? And what are your payment methods? Those all fall into this idea of your sales plan. And you may already have some of those, or you may not, but you have to factor those into your thinking. So we're just going to share a quick example here. And just for simplification purposes, this woman happens to be Brandy Harlan. She was hired as the event sales manager, dedicated to helping the Retreat Sarasota drive business development and sales. So she actually is the individual who has experience in this sector. She knows how to, knew how to build out kind of the sales and business development arm within the organization. And she also is the person who manages every event that she books. So she's got kind of a dual purpose, both as the event manager and the event sales manager. Okay, so that's a little bit about sales. Larry, over to you
All
for the
right.
section here.
And for everyone, here's the most exciting section, which is our last section, financials. I'm kidding. It is the last section, though, that we're going to highlight. So for purposes of business planning here, we look at a 3-year forecast of revenue, expense, and profitability, plus your startup and your growth capital needs. The business plan will have 3 years of these all wrapped up into it. It'll show whether your venture can be financially viable and when it will break even. It's really important to show that, because if you're going to be asking somebody for $50, $60, $70,000 in startup capital, you need to show that it's viable and that at some point it's going to break even. Maybe the first year, maybe the second year. So it will include revenue projections, how much is sold at what price. It'll include your direct and your indirect costs, maybe your cost of goods sold, your staffing, your marketing, your admin, all the other expenses that you'll incorporate into the business plan will be a part of it. Your startup cost will be really important, that we really kind of pull those all together, because that's what we'll be asking the community to help cover those costs of, is those startup costs at the fast pitch. And there could be some capital sources. There might be a grant or a loan or maybe some internal investment. There might be dollars that you have set aside that you can use for this business. So I'm going to share just a very brief example. This is a very simple financial model. So this is a nonprofit organization that's doing consulting services, very small organization, very simple. Here's our financial highlights. It shows some revenue, expense, and a net profit. They're showing a net profit in each of their years. Their revenue forecast, they have project hours, so they're selling hours of consulting time. And then they had $11,000 in startup funding that they needed. So maybe for website, maybe for, and we'll see that a bit later. But their total revenue in each of the 3 years, you can see how it grew over the 3-year period of time to $120,000 in year 3. Their total expenses, they had a salary line item, they had marketing, some print, some travel, technology. So most of their startup came in the technology line item. They needed to buy some technology for this. So their operating expenses were a bit higher in the first year because of their startup costs. And then they went a bit down in their second year and then up again in their third year. So they showed a net operating income or operating income of 79,000 and by year 3. So this, oh, sorry, Mike. I just wanted to share in their profit and loss statement, it has the revenue, direct costs, there's some gross margin, operating expenses, and then the operating income. And there was no income taxes that they paid. So again, you're used to these. This is a very, very simple one compared to your organizational ones. So financials, it's maybe too early for you to project your financials in your venture right now, but it's not too early to think about a few questions that we want you to think through. Is your financial accounting system set up for earned income? That's a question to ask yourself right now. Another question is, do you currently track revenue and expenses by program? You don't know how many organizations we've worked with in the past who don't do that. So that's a question that hopefully you all can answer yes to. The third question is, does that include tracking staff hours by project? Because as you move forward, you will really need to know who's working in this business and how many hours are they putting into it. Because that's part of the cost associated with the business. And fourth is, do you know your agency's overhead rate? We always include an overhead rate in the business plan. So something to think about as you go back. Mike? So there's a worksheet. We'd like you to think about a couple of these questions at the end of your worksheet. One of them is your overhead rate. So you can either you know that now or ask your finance person or whoever did your last audit. What's my overhead rate as an agency? And there's our little famous dog again. Thank you all for hanging in there in this lab. And I'm going to share some information with you now about next steps. But congrats, you lived through today. You lived through the first two labs, and we're so happy that you're all standing and that you're all with us. And hopefully you gained a lot of information. You were at lab 1, lab 2, and you were here today at lab 3. And hopefully you gained some information about business planning. You learned a little bit more today than you knew coming in, but we want you to take some action now. So you got some homework, jumpstarting your business plan. And this homework sheet will be very helpful if you choose to move forward with business planning with us, because we'll take information directly from this and utilize it in the business plan. So think about it that way. So take some action. You'll receive an email tomorrow, which includes the worksheet, today's recorded session again, the slide deck as a handout, and a feedback survey, and importantly, the advancement packet. So that's the packet that if you choose to move forward, take a look at that, read through that, and then make a decision whether you want to move forward with the next phase of work. Complete and submit the survey and the lab 3 worksheets prior to our next call. Some of those calls have been set up. Some of them have not been yet. So make sure that either Mike or I have that call set up with you soon. We'll reach out to you about that. But we need to get those worksheets before that next call. So there's an opportunity to move forward with the next phase of work. If you choose to fill out the advancement packet and do that, the first step is business planning. And we'll spend 14 weeks with those that choose to move forward, that are accepted into the MMI kind of intensive phase of work, and we'll help you create that business plan. At the same time that we're creating a business plan, Sarah Leonard will be working side by side with either Mike and I and helping you think about raising the startup capital and bringing the right people into the room for the fast pitch, which you'll be presenting your business plan to a group of donors, mission impact investors, and Sarah's job is to help get the right people in the room that day. Our job is to make sure that you have the right business plan to hand to them. So Mike and I work hand in hand with Sarah along that 14-week pathway. And then Sarah will work with you for a while after that, as you kind of wrap up the donor investments and kind of wrap up those hopefully donor requests and get the capital raise in the door. Mike and I step back in and work with you for another 14 weeks and implement the business plan on a weekly basis. You got the startup capital, hopefully, and it's the rubber hits the road at that point in time. We'll have our weekly calls just as we will have had in business planning, and we'll implement the business plan. We'll help, the hiring the staff or updating the website or whatever it is needs to be done in the business plan in that metrics and the task and timeline. And then after that 14 weeks, we'll spend 2 years with you in tracking and monitoring. So we'll have monthly calls at the end of phase 3. We'll start phase 4. We'll have monthly calls for 2 years. And those calls will focus on making sure that your financials are in line. We'll be gathering some information from you. We'll be helping with maybe there's some issues that you're having with your business. Maybe there's some pivots that need to happen. Maybe there's new opportunities that we need to talk about. Maybe there's new partnerships. Things along the way happen. And we find those calls are very, very helpful for each one of the organizations. So that's the next phase of work. So timing is Thursday, tomorrow. You'll get the advancement packet will be emailed to you with all of that other information. Friday, June 13th, the advancement packets are due. So write that down. It will be in the advancement packet in the cover note, but Friday, June 13th at 5 p.m. Eastern, the advancement packets are due. By Friday, June 27th, you'll be notified whether you're accepted into the next cohort of MMI and working with us. And we're going to kick off business planning probably the week of July 7th. So that's the timeline. And if you want to advance, what's going to be in that advancement packet? Here's a little bit of a kind of a look at it. Some specifics about your earned income offering. So we're going to want to know kind of what is it that you're thinking about. Your LWRCC, your organizational preparedness, kind of where do you sit in that? Why do you think you'd be successful in working with us and launching your business? So be thinking about that. And we'll also ask you to submit, there's a letter from your board, and your board chair will need to sign off on that your board is supportive of your organization moving forward with MMI. We just want to make sure that your board is right in line with the leadership of staff and is supportive of you, and which is why it's been extremely important to have a board member on at all the labs. So you have a supportive board member, at least at the board level. But there'll be an agreement from the board that needs to be a part of that advancement packet. So we're giving you a few weeks to make sure that that agreement can be signed. All right, there's the timeline. Mike, do you want to open it up, maybe? There might be some questions. Just shared kind of a lot of information at the end. But hopefully it was fairly clear. Any questions?
Thank you. This has been great.
Good. No questions.
If
Any
we
parting
have-
comments?
If we don't have questions now, you can save them certainly for our one-to-one Zoom sessions, but I see Kendra said, how many do you accept in the next round? We don't make any predetermination for that, Kendra. We've had cohorts that are as small as 2 organizations, and we've had cohorts that have been as many as 6 or 7 organizations. So it's really just dependent on the applicants and their qualifications, and that's how we'll sort of drive the choices. But good question.